Today we're going to get into the science of building muscle and tackle a super common question. Is your diet actually the thing holding you back from seeing results? Let's dive in. Okay, so picture this. You're hitting the gym, you're consistent, you're putting in the work. But when you look in the mirror, you're just asking yourself, why aren't my workouts working? Sound familiar? Yeah, let's talk about it. You're putting in the hours, you're lifting heavy, but the results you're chasing, they just aren't showing up. And look, if that feels familiar, trust me, you are not alone. It's probably one of the biggest frustrations out there. You feel like you're ticking all the boxes, but your progress has just hit a wall.
Well, what if the answer isn't in your workout at all? What if it's hiding in your kitchen? See, the truth is, your training is really only half the battle. The real secret sauce comes down to two absolutely crucial factors: energy and protein. We're going to break down the science behind both.
All right, first up, let's tackle energy, or as we all call them, calories. So what happens when you're training hard but not eating enough? Well, a major scientific review looked at this exact question, and what they found is pretty eye-opening. So the researchers basically set up a classic head-to-head comparison. On one side, you've got people doing resistance training while eating enough calories, just maintaining their weight. And on the other side, people doing the exact same workout, but in a calorie deficit, meaning they're eating less than their body is burning. And here's where it gets really interesting. When they looked at muscle size, or what scientists call lean mass, the difference was, well, it was huge. The group eating enough calories, they saw clear gains, no surprise there. But the group in a deficit, they struggled big time. Some of them even lost muscle. They even drilled down to a specific number. The analysis showed that once your daily energy deficit hits about 500 calories, your body's ability to build new muscle, it pretty much just stops. It grinds to a complete halt. So the main takeaway from the study, the authors put it pretty bluntly. They said, and I'm quoting here, individuals performing resistance training to build lean mass should avoid prolonged energy deficiency. In other words, if you want to get bigger, you just can't be in a big calorie hole for a long time. But hang on, because that's not the whole story. Not even close. This is where things get really interesting, because the researchers didn't just look at muscle size. They also looked at muscle strength. And get this, the strength gains were practically identical between both groups. The people in a calorie deficit got stronger at pretty much the exact same rate as the people who were eating enough. How is that possible? Well, it seems your muscles can get way more efficient and powerful without actually getting physically bigger. Okay, so this is the huge takeaway right here. A calorie deficit basically slams the brakes on getting bigger. But, and this is a big but, it doesn't stop you from getting stronger. That is a game changer. So that's the deal with energy. But what about the second piece of the puzzle? Protein, right? If calories are the fuel, the energy for the construction site, what are the actual bricks? That's protein. And to really understand its impact, we're going to look at a different study. This one came out in 2022, and it was designed to figure out one thing. What is the direct impact of protein on muscle growth right after you train? Now, the specific thing they were measuring is something called muscle hypertrophy, which is really just the fancy scientific term for what we all care about, getting bigger muscles, the actual increase in the size of the muscle fibers.
The experiment was super straightforward. For 12 weeks, they had two groups of athletes. One group got whey protein right after their workouts. The other group, they just got water. And the results, honestly, they weren't even in the same ballpark. The protein group scored an average of 22.23 on the growth scale. The water group, a measly 6.43.
I mean, just look at that on a chart. It's not a small difference, it's a massive one. The group that had protein saw more than 3 times the muscle growth. That is absolutely huge, and it just screams how essential protein really is for this process. So here's what's happening. Your workout is like sending a work order to your body that says, hey, build more muscle right here. But if the building materials, the amino acids from protein, aren't delivered to the job site, your body just can't do the work. The signal was sent, but nobody could act on it. Okay, so we've got the science on energy, and we've got the science on protein. Now for the most important part. How do we actually use this stuff? How do we put it all together to build a plan that actually works for your specific goals? Let's stick with that construction site analogy, because it works perfectly. Think of it this way. Your resistance training, that's the construction crew. They show up ready to build. The calories, that's the energy, the electricity that runs the entire site. And the protein, that's the stack of bricks and mortar. You need the crew, the power, and the materials.
Take away any one of them, and the house doesn't get built. Simple as that. So when it comes to building your own plan, it really boils down to two simple steps. Step 1, you have to set your energy goal. What's priority number 1? Is it losing fat, which means a deficit, or is it building muscle, which means at least enough calories? And step 2, and this one is totally non-negotiable, you have to prioritize your protein. No matter what your energy goal is, the bricks have to be there.
Okay, let's put this into practice. Let's say your main goal is fat loss. Fine, that means you're going to be in a calorie deficit. So based on what we just learned, you have to accept a hard truth. Building new muscle size is going to be really, really difficult. So what do? You shift your focus. You train for strength to hang on to the muscle you've got, and you keep that protein intake high to act as a shield, protecting it from being lost. Now, what if your main goal is the opposite? You want to build muscle. Well, then your playbook is completely different. You need to avoid those big, long calorie deficits like the plague. You need to eat at least at maintenance or maybe even in a slight surplus to provide the fuel for growth. And of course, you pair that with high protein and a solid progressive training plan that keeps signaling grow, grow, grow.
And that right there is the bottom line. Your nutrition has to be aligned with your number 1 goal. You have to pick a destination. Are you trying to get leaner or are you trying to get bigger? Because trying to do both at the same time is like trying to fuel 2 completely different trips. It just doesn't work.
So the science really couldn't be clearer. Getting stronger, that's almost always possible. But getting bigger, that's a different story. That demands not just the signal from your training, but also the right fuel and the right building blocks from your diet. So now you know the rules of the game. The only question is, how are you going to fuel your goals?